working through what leadership principles look like. And when I talked to Bishop Millett, he happened to say that he too was a NASCAR fan. There are just not too many opportunities that I have to speak from a corporate C-suite position, also to be able to say without reservation, hesitation, and call him by name and say Jesus, and then to rope in NASCAR in the same presentation. So I was just delighted that the three of those things actually can go together. And so I thought first I would tell you a little about my brand so that you don't know me, I don't know you, but let's see if I can make an introduction from the stage all the way to each one of you. So I'm a native of Florida. Hey, Florida in the house, that's good. Thank you for the love. I'll know which way to look. I actually live now in Ohio, so if anybody from Ohio, I'll say hi to your mom and dad in Ohio. I am the wife of Mark Washington, and I am the mother of Markayla, Sean, and Joseph, so they're in the picture on the top left. My mom and dad still live in Florida, so I am the youngest of two. I actually attended Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia for my undergraduate degree in chemistry and psychology, so I thought I was going to grow up and become a pediatrician. I haven't done that yet, but I have seen the pediatrician under 3 kids. I then worked for an insurance company and realized that maybe with a chemistry degree that would not work so well in business. So I went back to school and received my MBA from Washington University in St. Louis. And then the companies at the bottom just shows the tour that I've been fortunate to have in corporate America, whether working for Ralston Purina, then we were acquired by Nestle. I then went to Gillette and then had the opportunity for Gillette to be bought and brought me back to Cincinnati and with Procter & Gamble. Left Procter & Gamble and went to Luxottica Retail. Some of you may not know Luxottica by Luxottica, but you would know Luxottica by Lens Crafters and Sunglass Hut. And then I had the good fortune of working for a boss for the 3rd time who became the CEO of Jamba Juice. And so he asked me if I would come and be a part of his team for the 3rd time. So do know that your works speak for you. And so people will call you back if you put forth great work. And so never put a small thing in a position where greatness can happen. It's up to you to make the opportunities work for you. So that's me. We can talk later if you want to know a little bit more. But let me talk through how I want to spend the time. When Bishop Millett, Melissa and I were talking, and we talked about a playbook, here are the things that I'd like to share with you from my journey within the C-suite, some things I've learned as a leader and some things I've learned as a coach. So I want to talk a little bit about branding, because each one of us is a brand. And if you understand your brand, you can sell anybody else's brand. But the key issue is most people don't know who they are. So when you don't know who you are, it's hard to sell me on anything else, okay? I want to talk about, my words are around purpose, promise, and proclamation. That's where your homework is going to come in. So when you get to those slides, pay attention because you have some work to apply those 3 concepts. I'll then give you my 5 leadership principles, and I call them my 5 C's. I then will go into a NASCAR term around acceleration, because we all want to go faster, right? We want to innovate, we want to accelerate, we want to go to the next level, whatever it is. And so I want to talk about how you can accelerate. And then I think it's always good to reflect and make sure you remember what you've learned from your lessons. Whenever a teacher gave you back your report card, your test, you should reflect to understand what you got right as well as what you got wrong. And so I want to make sure that if you haven't had the same journey that I have, I'll give you a couple of insights on some things I've learned, and you shouldn't make those same mistakes. And then at the very end, I want to get to what are then the winning strategies for a champion leader as we move forward. And so this is sort of a walk through my champion playbook, and I hope you'll enjoy the journey. So NASCAR. Anybody a fan outside of Bishop Millett and myself? Anybody know anything about it? Okay, so I figured I would throw in sports because you're investing in yourself and you're missing something with the Olympics. All right, so I figured I'd give you a little bit of sports, and we couldn't talk Olympics because then you'll be distracted, so I'm going to keep you right home in Carolina and we'll talk NASCAR. But it's one of the sports that my oldest son and I watch, and we go to the track usually every year. And it is, to me, a great example of what taking the lead looks like. Because anybody that knows NASCAR, but probably any sport, there is a lot of preparation that takes place long before the driver gets into the car. There's some planning. There are a lot of people involved in the preparation and the plan, and most importantly, in the execution. And so I thought it would just be a great analogy to use throughout our time together for you to be able to see where you might be in your own story of NASCAR. And so I'd like now to share a clip with you from one of my favorite races. So I'll reveal that I'm a Jimmy Johnson Team 48 Lowe's fan. And so within that, there was one race in particular that really brings home many of the points, and it is about working together with someone. So if anyone knows about Daytona or Talladega, you can't run that race by yourself. You need somebody to draft with. So you need to make sure your communications are clear about what you're getting ready to do, otherwise bad things happen. And you have to be very prepared. You can't go into that race wondering what's going to happen on the last lap. You need to already envision what the last lap of a race looks like. And many times we don't envision what's in front of us. And so I'd like to show the clip now of what that race was about, the last 30 seconds of Talladega 2011.
But here comes the next two pair. These two cats right here, they may have timed it out too. Let's see what happens down the back.
Now they will get a draft off Mark Martin. And here's the slingshot to the outside.
Stay together. That's what they're saying. Stay together. Push, push, push. It's going to get tight down here in turn 3.
Don't forget Jimmy Johnson and Dale Jr., 5th and 6th. They are there. Which group will they go with? And will it help the Childress cars, or will it help Jeff Gordon to victory lane?
All bets are off. They get to the middle of the trail.
Watch out, down low.
Way down comes Johnson.
Good run.
He's got room. They're 3 wide. 3 by 3 to the line.
Johnson.
Maybe Jimmy Johnson.
I believe he got him by an inch.
2 1/1000ths of a second he beat Boyer.
Okay, a 1/16 of an inch.
So 2 1/1000ths of a second. That's very close, right? So even in the Olympics, you don't get that close on the touch. But those were 6 cars. And if you were watching the last lap, Jimmy and Dale were not anywhere near in contention. It looked like there were 4 cars that had the greatest probability of winning. So in life, it's not about where you're positioned, it's about where you actually see yourself. So if you've envisioned the finish line, you just need to tell your drafting partner, I'm getting ready to make the move. And they didn't make it too soon. They timed it on turn 3. You have to know if you're getting ready to turn for home. And in your turn for home, it's then that you accelerate. All right, so I want us to actually talk through our playbook of how in NASCAR terms, there's some lessons to be learned. If we all just lean into life, people are trying to tell you things every day, but many of us are missing the lessons, and it's all because we're not paying attention. So tonight, I'll let NASCAR be a friend of ours to help us. So let's start our journey on our playbook by looking at brands. So what is a brand? I would say that your brand could be a product, a service, or a concept that has a differentiation from another brand, a service, or a concept, and one that actually can be marketed and communicated. So at the end of the day, if I ask you guys, so this is a participatory part of my presentation, because I believe we all would have similar answers. So if I say, when you look at Tide, what's the one word that comes to mind when I say Tide? Okay, so we have cleanliness. So whatever the brand is and whatever they're saying in their marketing campaign, somewhere many of us believe Tide gets your clothes clean. All right, and so if I would then say Coca-Cola, what comes to mind? refreshment. And so regardless of New Coke, Old Coke, Diet Coke, and any other version of their brands, it always has refreshment. And if you remember their commercials, they have that bubbly. It was to give you the image that I deliver on refreshment. So I believe in life that many times you have to be able to show people, not just tell people who you are, right? Because I believe actions do speak louder than words. Nike, what would you say would be the word for Nike? Just do it. And it's based on what? Just do what to deliver? What's the outcome if you just do it? You are winning and performance. All right? So everybody wanted to be like Mike, and we all started wearing shoes, and not that the shoes were going to make it, but Nike made millions of dollars based on the assumption of greater performance with this product. So now I would say, if I then ask you to think about you, a personal brand, would you know the common word that people would say when I said your name? If your image was up on the screen, what's the word that would come to mind when they think of you? Because in a personal brand, it really is. When we get introduced somewhere, you made up a story about the brand Julie before I took the stage. Right, wrong, or indifferent, we came up with some story. I either fulfilled it or I either have given you more material to work with. But it is about perception. It is about what people think about you, and it's based upon your actions. And it's not what you say. I can say I am 6 feet tall, but that doesn't prove out, because I cannot play basketball and I would not demonstrate 6-foot capabilities, right? But if we go back to Disney is a brand that, whether you're on their cruise line, whether you're at Magic Kingdom, whether you're in the Disney store, Disney always delivers what would be the word for Disney? Magic. So if you've ever gone to Disney World and your child is having a meltdown, somebody comes out of nowhere and they come and deliver magic. As a parent, that was a great thing when you have 3 kids and one of them is having a moment and you're hot. And somebody says, oh, it's not that bad, and magic just starts flittering all through the place, and the child is distracted, and they're happy again. And so Disney, no matter it's in the store, whether it's on the boat, whether it's inside of one of their theme parks, they deliver magic. And the question is, are you consistently delivering what you say you are and that people perceive you are? Or will I see you on a Sunday one way and your brand different on Monday another way? Will I see a different brand at church than I will at home than with your homeboys, right? So can I say that wherever you go, your brand is the same? I decided to pull up one of my favorite people and brands, and it's Miss Oprah Winfrey. Now, these are just a couple of her logos, right? So if you go online, you can find many more logos about Oprah. These are my words, but I believe that Oprah has always put her consumer, her viewer, her reader, her listener, whatever it is, they're always first, no matter what. And she then surprises and delights people. So you remember how many shows she gave away things. She also then brought people in, and that was when she had the book club. And once the Oprah effect happened, your life changed. People bought your books, you get your own show. All of a sudden, your brand took off and went in directions that you could not have imagined. But that's all because of one lady and her brand, and that's Oprah. So what's the impact that you're leaving on people based upon your brand, day in and day out? When I think about a combination, I thought these 3 images were salient, because when we talk about branding, we talk about purpose. And I believe that many of us have talked through and have some idea about who we are as a person, but what we haven't connected to is the will of God in our life. And therefore, you're living beneath what God created, designed, and is expecting you to be and do. So it's important to me to not just talk about purpose, but you have to understand the biblical foundation from which he created you uniquely and is expecting you to deliver on one thing and one thing only. And everybody can't do everybody else's job. And it's once you get that understanding of his will for your life, I think then you can get into a proclamation. So Everybody likes a big day, right? I don't know if the mayor came here when you guys had your groundbreaking, but usually big days, big events, there are proclamations made. It's an announcement that says something big is happening. Make a mile marker in life because this was a day to be remembered. And I would want you to work through this weekend to make sure you have a proclamation statement. And I'll give you some ideas on what a proclamation statement looks like. So if you take a journey with me, let's start with brand purpose. So your purpose is all about the question why. Why are you here? Why did God place you here at this point in time? Why did he give you the families that he gave you, right? So we all could have been different names, but he gave you your family. Why did he give you the skills and the gifts that he gave to you, but he didn't give to your sister or your brother? So at the end of the day, it's about why. And many of us don't take time to peel back the onion and know what's deeper and at the root of it. And we know that a strong tree has good roots, and good roots go deep. But many of us do surface level work and don't do rooted, deeper work. So if you take a look on the design, I'm just here to tell you what the word says, so you don't have to take my word for it. You can have this discussion with the Lord. But David penned in Psalms 139, verse 14, about whether we were designed with purpose and designed well. David says, I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know that full well. So there's no doubt that God was pleased with what he created when he created you. Second piece, we move over to the New Testament, and Paul decides to jump in on the discussion, and he says that you really are unique. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, there's a full chapter that's allocated to understanding your uniqueness. I'm highlighting verses 14 and 17 on the slides. Verse 14 says, for the body is not one member, but many. Verse 17 says, now, if the whole body were an eye, where were the hearing? If the whole were hearing, where were the smelling? Now, using my NASCAR picture, everybody on the pit crew has a job. And the only way for you to have a successful pit stop in 12 to 14 seconds, everybody has to stay in their lane. Don't do my job because I need you to do your job. And in life, many of us are swimming and running in somebody else's lane. That's why accidents happen. That's why there's confusion. That's why people, I call it, are just crazy because they're not walking upright and in their lane, and you're weaving and bobbing. Have you ever been on the road? I don't know. In Ohio, we have some crazy drivers, and they're just cutting in and out of traffic and not going anywhere. I'm like, and here I am meeting you back at the light. Stay in your lane, and we would have all had lower blood pressure, and we still got to the light at the same time. And so if you understand my job is important, because the guy that actually doesn't really get talked about in the pit stop is the gas man. But try running out of gas and winning a race. Or be on the highway and try running out of gas, right? And so he has an important job, and he needs to fill the tank because many races are won based upon fuel mileage. And in life, you need to know whether you have a full tank or if you're close to running on E, all right? So I'll give you an example. My mom is an amazing cook. Now, I like to cook, but my mom loves to cook, and we are happy that she knows how to cook. Now, my mom evidently read the book on food groups. So she can, people know my mom for her briskets, for her fried chicken, and for her mac and cheese. But I tell you, I am delighted that my mother did not miss out on the vegetable group because my mother knows how to cook some collard greens. She does some sweet potatoes quite well and some okra. I probably should stop talking. I'll be hungry in a minute. But the key point is my mom knows that we can't get all of our nutrition from fried chicken. You have to understand that everything in life has a role and a purpose. That's why they talk about the food group, the My Plate. Your plate should be colorful and it should be multidimensional. If all you're eating is one thing, you're evidently not fulfilling the nutritional profile that your body needs, right? So what I'm encouraging you is understand your why in life. Because if you know why you're here, then you'll stay in your lane and you will do what only you were gifted to do. We don't need to be jealous of anybody else. You can't take what God has given to me, right? And so I think that's an important piece for us to recognize. I don't have to hate on you. I can really be excited. I can actually shout for you on Sunday, on Monday, and on Tuesday. Because I know that if God would use you and do what he promised to do for you, he will not withhold anything good from me. And so I think if we can understand that and really get it deeply in our soul, you'll actually unlock some things that you couldn't have imagined that God had in store for you. So the second piece of the equation is what I call our brand promise. Your brand promise is the what question. You need to know what's on the inside. So I put up a couple of thoughts. What are your values, your beliefs, and your principles? If somebody came and they did the after game interview with you, what would you say are the things that anchor you? You know, we all have our DNA. And as I met Josh today, he told me there are a lot of Millettes. And so I'm sure they all sort of look a little bit alike. And if you go to the family reunion, you'll probably call one of them the wrong name, right? But at the end of the day, they are each a different person with different thoughts. I'm sure they have different discussions. They all don't think one way as Millettes because we're all uniquely, divinely made. And so I would then say, what then are the stories that you want told? If you really knew that somebody was going to tell your story 100 years or 1,000 years from now, what's the story that's going to be told? I don't know if Ruth and Naomi and Sarah and Abraham and Moses, I don't know if they knew we would be talking about them thousands of years later. But if your story was going to be told, have you thought about what story someone will actually lift up 100 years from now about your brand? And the other question I raise is, what can God count on you to deliver all the time? Not what Bishop Millett can expect from you, but what can God expect from you all the time? So when I was at Procter & Gamble, one of the brands that I really enjoyed was Dawn. So I don't know if there are any Dawn people, and I only had one sister, so it's either you do the chore or I do the chore. So I was on dishwashing duty for most of my teenage years. And so in the beginning, Dawn had a commercial. Does anybody remember what's the purpose of Dawn? Why did they introduce Dawn? Dawn does what? It cuts grease, but what else was the second tag? Dawn did something else. Made your hands soft. Remember they had palm olive, and that was a whole big thing that Dawn cuts the grease, and you'd see all the grease move to the side, but they also made sure that your hands were soft. Nobody wanted to do dishes and then not have soft hands, right? But does anybody remember the oil spills that happened? They decided that Dawn evidently would be a good brand to address Mother Nature's ills. It was soft enough for the wildlife, but strong enough to deal with the oil. In season, out of season, you need to show up consistently the same way all the time. No matter where you are applied in life, you need to show up the same way all the time. I just love Dawn, but it showed up in a way I could not have imagined. But imagine when God could use you in a place that you didn't even dream of, because you're staying in your lane and you're working with the gifts that he's given you. So no matter who you are and what you have been given, understand your what, because that's going to open up your promise. Now, if I was in Bible study, we'd go deep right here. But this page, I decided I'll just give you a look, and that's going to be Bible study homework is this page, all right? This is the brand proclamation page. For those of you that have spent time in the Gospels, you remember when Jesus was talking to the disciples, they were coming from Galilee, and they were on their way to Caesarea Philippi. And Jesus said, "Who do men say that I am?" Right? And so what did the disciples say that the answers were to who is this man, Jesus? Apostle? He might be Elijah. Exactly. So some of them, I don't know. He's up there, but I don't know. Maybe he's one of the prophets. But then Jesus did something very interesting. These are the guys that have been walking with him all the time. But most recently, Jesus had just fed the 4,000. and he had just healed the blind man. So if you don't remember what I have done, they had fresh encounter with Jesus. And Jesus then turns the script and says, well, who do you say that I am? And of course, there's always one in the group that's going to say, well, I got the answer, teacher. You are the Messiah. And Jesus says, well, thank you for the right answer, but you didn't get that on your own. So let's make sure that we give credit where credit is due. The Father revealed that to you. But now Jesus could have said anything about himself. And I find it intriguing that in the Old Testament, God says that I am that I am. And that was big enough to encompass everything. But Jesus unpacks the Trinity. And he could have given us any example, but he puts these 8 in the book of John. He says, I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am the gate for the sheep. And in each one of these, he's telling a story. So something is happening where he's going to talk about why he's in that position and why that defines who he is as Lord and Savior. I am the good shepherd. I am the resurrection and the life. That was when Jesus was talking to Mary and Martha and Lazarus had died. And he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And I am the true vine. I, Jesus, am God. So if you haven't spent time studying who Jesus said he was, that's a good place to camp out in your Bible study time. So if Jesus took the time to define and clarify and communicate who he was with a group of men who were already walking alongside him, I always say, if it's good enough for corporate America, it's good enough for me to try this thing at home, right? If you're paying me to do marketing planning for your company, my husband and I do marketing planning and business planning for our family every year. It's an important time that you set aside. If it's good enough to help million and billion-dollar companies improve their bottom line, then it's important for me to take that same discipline and do it for my family. And so let's take a look then. If Jesus is asking 2 questions, I'm going to make sure that you don't miss the lesson here. Who do people say you are? And if you haven't done that, it's an important thing to go ask an array of people, who do they see you to be? Then I ask you, who do you say that you are? Because the only person that you really have a truth conversation with every day when you look in the mirror is that person that's looking back at you. They know all your good and your bad, your ups and your downs. But are you telling the truth to them when you look at them? Who do you say? And if you don't know you, spend time away from everybody else figuring out, who am I? Why am I here? What have I been gifted to do? Because somebody is waiting for you to walk in your purpose, and they are waiting for you to bless them. And they have a desire to meet you on some corner in life, but if you don't show up ready, prepared for the opportunity to take the lead, you miss the championship victory lap, all right? So if I add them all together, I call this sort of the summary page. This is if we took purpose, promise, and proclamation and add it together, it answers the 4 question. Whose am I? It's a part of God's will. Remember, that's the piece that's usually missing when we don't spend full understanding of who we are. Why I am, meaning what's my purpose? What I am, that's my promise. Dawn is going to cut grease. Dawn will always leave it softer. Who I am. So when they put the marker in the ground, what's the proclamation statement for your brand? So my sons are in Boy Scouts, so I don't know if there are any other scouts in the house, but the oldest one is the senior patrol leader, and he's getting ready to become an Eagle Scout. Well, I'm not big on camping, so that's just not in my cup of tea. So when he goes out, I call it to the woods, I usually say, okay, son, well, there are 3 questions that we need to always have answered. And it actually follows this principle. So I need him to remember certain things because I'm not going to be there. And in the woods, they don't have any electronic devices. All right? So I can't reach him and he can't reach me. And right now he's 15, but he started in the woods at 10, right? So they barely know up from down at 10. And so I said, so answer the question, whose are you? Because if you can understand that I belong to the Most High God and that I belong to Mark and Julie Washington, you couldn't get a better fighting team on your side, son. I don't care if you lost in the woods. God will protect you until your mom and daddy finds you. Don't go anywhere. Rest and know that God will and we will find you. I always ask him, what's your name? I named our children with purpose. And so he knows that when people call his name, they are speaking his purpose every time. His haters speak his purpose when they call his name. So it was an accident. He was named with purpose. So he is Sean Vincent. He is God's gift that conquers. We had a miscarriage between our first and second, and I'm a planful kind of chick. So I wasn't ready that we were going to rebound and Sean was coming in. So he was truly a gift because I didn't have it on the plan line. God saw something that I didn't see. He was going to be the millennial baby. He was supposed to be born in 2000. For those that remember, that was a big thing, who was going to have the baby in 2000, right? Well, he's the 2001 baby. And yet, he is the one that I need him to understand that you conquer both internally and externally. You were named for victory. So we don't walk in defeat. We walk in the victory that God has already given us, all through your name. And then I said, why do you go? You should never show up anywhere and not know why you're going. You don't get this time back in life. And so the youngest one, he used to always ask his brother and sister for do-overs. And I'm like, son, now you're double digits. We don't do do-overs anymore. And as big people, we don't get do-overs. Opportunities will knock, and either you're ready for them or you're not. And so my point to him is, why are you going into these woods this week? So you can let people know when they're not meeting your expectations. I was expecting for us to do A, B, and C. But if you don't know why you're going, anything they did was good, right? And so he knows why he shows up. He's accountable, and he holds people accountable. You need to know the answers to your 4 questions because they are the true undercurrent to your proclamation. So let me give you, I always believe in teaching by example. So I'm a visual learner, and so this is my example of my proclamation statement. Now, it answers each of the questions. So what's your purpose? What makes you unique? I'd have you have to cull the list down. You'll have a lot of words, and you're like, I can't leave that off. You can't tell your whole story. If you have 30 seconds to talk to Oprah, you can't tell the full story about your life. So what are the 3 to 5 words that make you you, that shows up no matter where you go, no matter who's talking about you? Those are the words that would always be like the Nike and the Coca-Cola. And do you really understand your gifts? Sometimes you need to have somebody else help you see what you might not be able to see. So in college, I had one girlfriend. She was brutal in my view at that time. She would say, are you going to go out wearing that? And I'm like, well, I actually thought I looked good, but upon further reflection, evidently something's not combining well together. And so you need somebody that can ask you, are you going to go out wearing that? Because they are the people that will truly help you be the best you that you can be. And I put my keywords inside. This gets into my 5 C's. I'll break them apart for you. But if I was to write the summary statement, it would look like what I put in yellow. So I'm Julie Washington. I have a sister that's Jennifer, but she is not committed to serving with excellence. Her brand is something different. I'm very clear on the choices that I make. I know why I say yes to things, and I'm very clear about why I say no to things. I'm confident in my convictions. And in corporate America, that has caused me some problems. I don't waver in what I believe. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't believe that there's an alternate idea. I just need you to come correct with your idea. But what I do know is my idea and why I believe what I believe. So I'm very confident in the things that I know. I am courageous. I'm willing to say what others might not say. I will stand in traffic when others won't. Somebody has to be willing to do for those that can't, those that don't have a voice. And if you've been given the seat at the table, you need to make sure you are accountable to those that have not been invited to the table at all. That is an important part, because we all won't get to go to the green room. But if you're in the green room, you need to make sure you're representing the people that you actually look like, sound like, believe like, walk like. It was important. I don't know if you guys saw the highlight from Simone's swimming gold last night. And her opening line, when she gets out of the pool and she's crying and excited, she represented appropriately. She says, "I'm giving all glory to God." Now, some of that got cut out depending on which channel you were watching, but if you caught the one that caught the whole thing and somebody didn't do the editing in the room, or a believer was there saying, "We're going to give credit where credit is due," but it doesn't discount that she gave God all honor. Somebody heard her voice. I also believe that I'm a compassionate person, and so I believe sometimes people just speak harshly and we don't ever lean in to understand where somebody is and what their story is. And somebody has a story to be told. We just haven't asked them to share it. I'm also very much about motivating you to be your best. I tell people everybody shouldn't work for me, and I'll tell you that in an interview. So up front, we should let you know that you might not be good on my team. I don't like losing, and I don't like lazy people. Okay? So, if you're looking for a ride, my daddy called them parasites when we were young. He liked to fish, and so he'd tell you that there's some people that will just latch on to you for the ride. It's the free ride. They don't want to do any work. But I only want people that want to stand side by side. And if you're doing what you're supposed to do, we're going to have an amazing pit crew. We will get to victory lane, but I can't do it by myself. But what I can't do is have the weight of you holding me back from what God has created and divinely asked and charged me to do. So that's my story. So let me just unpack a couple of things for you that got me to those pages. These are my 5 C's, so those are the same words that I use. But here's sort of a definition within them. Character. I believe it's all about your integrity, about your ethical compass. In Boy Scouts, they have to take a compass because they need to know which way is north. If you lost in the woods, you have to know which way to go, right? Do you know what is in bounds and out of bounds for you? So my daughter is getting ready to go off to college, and one of the things that we've been talking about is she'll have a roommate. You need to know what is on your side and what's not on your side, what you will do and what you will not do, because everybody else may go to the left, but that does not mean that you should go. But do you know what guides you? What is your character? Because everybody's right isn't applicable. Some things I call those wrong, but that's my set, that's my character, those are my values. Second is you have to have clarity and vision. As a chief marketing officer, the board, the shareholders, my team, they were expecting me to have a vision. I believe Bishop Millett has to have a vision for what are you going to be as a family? What are you going to be in this community? Yes, he can share the word and we can do great things on Sunday, but what's the vision for what God has laid in his heart and charged his hand to do? He has to have clarity in that because people can't follow in a confused state. Okay? The third piece that I call it's about conviction. My grandmother was very strong. So my mom's from a family of 15. And so my grandmother had a lot of kids and grandkids. But you have to believe in what you say you believe in, not what somebody else says. It was remembering when I got older how a hymn changed meanings, where near the cross and what a friend we have in Jesus meant something altogether different than just the hymns of Sunday school and Baptist Training Union. It actually meant something when you say that Jesus actually is a keeper of my soul today, because you have a real experience, but you have to know what you believe in and have self-confidence in your choices. The fourth one is courage. If there are any of you that are in the military, a friend of mine was, and he said there was a cadet prayer at West Point, and that's where this fourth point comes from. It's about being willing to do the hard right versus the easy wrong. And in life, many of us want the easy way out. It is convenient. I don't discount it. That's why they call it a microwave. But my mother has never made a microwavable cake. You must put her cakes in the oven, right? And so in life, you can't take shortcuts in everything that you do. Sometimes there are things that are okay in the microwave, but most Thanksgiving dinners are cooked on the stove and in the oven, all right? The last one is about compassion. Maya Angelou said that people will forget what you said. They will even forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. I bet you could remember an elementary school teacher that said something to you, did something to you, but what's lasting is how they made you feel. Either feel loved, feel valued, or they're the things that motivate you because they said you couldn't. They doubted you. But it is about the feeling of a person. And as a great leader, you have to connect to the head of a person as well as to the heart of a person. That's what effective marketing is about. It's not about being able to just talk through a brand promise. Most of the commercials are all about connecting to your emotions. That's why the music is important. That's why the music industry will always thrive, because it elicits something. When you think about praise and worship, the whole experience changes when music is added to the praise and worship experience. That is just the same part of what I believe compassion is. It connects to the heart of a people. The next piece I'd like to walk through is about leadership. So I believe each and every one of you can be a leader. So if you don't call yourself a leader, it's not being the person that's at the front of the line. It's actually being the person that understands how to get us all to move forward toward a common goal, right? So in fact, if you found me in the community, at home, I'm a leader from the back, because remember the word I used was service. I don't always need to be in the front. I'm effective in the front, but I also know how to effectively lead by following. Everybody doesn't seem to know that. Some people, if they're not the president of the choir or the section leader of the altos, they can't sing unless they're in that particular position. But the understanding is, do you know who you are? I can follow you if we're going in the same direction, right? It's when you going and bobbing and weaving. Listen, I'm not trying to get lost. I always tell people, now that I've had to fly to California a lot, I do sleep on the plane, but I don't normally sleep when anybody's driving and anybody's flying, because here's what I believe. I have never flown a plane, but if we're going down, give me the plane. I'm going to take my life into my own hands, and I'll meet the maker on my terms, right? But if nobody else knows how to fly, I can take direction. That's the confidence I have in me. I don't know the people in 3B and 3C, right? And they might waver. No, I'm going to line up on that line, and I'm bringing the plane in. You know, I say to my mom and dad, are you getting tired? You're blinking a lot. I'm not talking about waking up in heaven and say, how did I get here? No, I know what happened, how I got here. Who wants to miss the end of any show or the last chapter of a good book? I want to know how my story ended. And you were asleep. You don't even know. But people are asleep in life, missing their own story. I just think I'm entertained by myself. Everybody else, my children are there for decorations at times. But I believe leadership is a learned position. Nobody came out the womb with a leadership cape on. Each of us have been shaped by our environment and our experiences, and so it is learned. But my mom always talked about everything is practice. She says, Julie, before any public victory, there have been private victories. There isn't an Olympic athlete that hasn't put in years, hundreds of hours of practice. My question is, why is it that we only show up when the cameras are rolling? Can you do what you do when nobody else is looking? That's a real brand. And so that's why I enjoy me with just me. Everybody else, you just are along for the ride. I hope you enjoy the parts that you get in. But this is my story. But you have to understand that there is practice. I never take anything for granted. I stand before the Lord and say, even if I've spoken to hundreds of audiences, Lord, this one is new. What is it that you would like to say to your people today? And let me not take my gift for granted. Let me hone my skill to ensure that tonight They heard from you the way you best needed to reach their hearts. I also believe leadership is intentional. You can't be haphazard about what you do as an entrepreneur. If you're building a business, if you visited the PNC table, you can't just go to the bank and just come up with a thought while you're sitting across the table from them asking for a loan. You have to be intentional about, this is what I expect, this is the business, this is how I expect it to grow. Every business I've been on, I have to tell the board what our long-term plan is. And so you need to be able to tell them how you plan to grow the business, drive the traffic, increase comps, whatever it is that your metric is, but you have to be intentional about it. I also believe you have to be transparent. So working at Jamba Juice, we're a publicly traded company. People these days, even if you're private, people seem to know more of your business than you would ever want them to know. So my husband is a private man, but once I became an officer of a company, he had to get comfortable being public because everybody in the family could find out how much money I made. That was not a good thing for him. So once you're in the office, everybody can know a few more things in the public space. So the question becomes, have you ever been somewhere and you didn't know somebody was listening? A friend of mine was talking about she had the microphone on, but they were doing a satellite. But the people in the room, she knew they couldn't hear her, but what she didn't know is the mic was on for the people on the satellite. And one of her friends sent her a text message, and she said, you do know your mic is on. What would have been the night's result if she had said something that had been damaging because she didn't believe anybody could hear her? So imagine if somebody's listening in to your conversations, how transparent are you really being in your day-to-day communications? Or are you saying one thing when the mic isn't on and saying another thing when the mic is on? I promise you, Big Brother really is watching. That's coming to life. He seems to know more about me than I want him to know about me. I have to go back to NASCAR because in life I like to keep the themes going because I don't want anybody, at the end of this, somebody might be a NASCAR fan and want to go to a race. Chad Knaus is the crew chief for Jimmy Johnson. And in life, you can't do anything by yourself. Jimmy is an amazing athlete. He's an amazing driver. But Jimmy is only successful because he has a full team that partners with him, and that starts with the crew chief. That's the man that's the engineer. He's building the cars. Jimmy's driving the cars. You need to make sure you're clear about who's your crew chief. Some people you're going to have to let go. Everybody can't be on your team when God's trying to take you to the next level. That is hard to do because that sometimes means you have to let some family members go. We're only given 24 hours in a day, and some people will misuse your time if you let them. So when you take a look at your crew chief, here's some things that if I was your crew chief, I'd tell you if we were leaning in trying to have a one-to-one conversation. You need to take accountability. As my children know, I have a fundamental issue with people who cast blame on everybody else. The dog ate my lunch and everything is somebody else's issue. Own what is yours. I'll deal with it after you take accountability for it. But be honest when you get it right and be honest when you get it wrong. That's the sign of a true champion leader, is when you can say it. It's my daughter that keeps me in this space of humility because she has the best recovery that I've ever seen, and especially as a teenage girl. She'll do something wrong, and within hours she comes back and she apologizes, and I'm thinking, I think I would have taken a little bit longer to come back downstairs. And I'm sure my mom would say, you did take a lot longer to repent of your sins and ask for forgiveness. But how long are you going to continue to blame everybody else for why you're where you are? Take accountability for your brand, because that's the only brand that you're responsible for. The second one is relationships, not transactions. Do you know people that only call you when they need you? How many people are making deposits in your bank account? You cannot go to PNC and make a withdrawal if you have not made a deposit. It's always helpful. I promise you, the leaders that I've had the good fortune of working with, they actually have made deposits long before they need to make a withdrawal. And so I can ask them for many things because I've already shown them that I love you because of the relationship, not because of the transaction. When you go to Food Lion, once you go through the line, it's over. That cashier doesn't know you, actually on to the next person. Transactions are that way, and if you treat people in a transactional way, you're selling the relationship short. Third one would be know the rule. So in corporate America at Nestle Purina, there was a rule about lunches. And so I was young, I was about, I'm just good, I get the work done, I get results. That's the only thing that matters. Actually, that wasn't. The deals were done at lunch. The determination of who got which assignment and who got promoted was done at lunch. And so I said to myself, sometimes you have to remember biblical. I said, fool, you're eating, and yet you're missing the opportunity to eat with people who are trying to make changes. So I then made it, remember intentionality. It was a part of my to-do list. Twice a week, I did lunch with somebody. Because sometimes people can't promote you or bring you on their team because they just don't know you. And people are uncomfortable with that they don't know. So I needed them to know I eat the same way they do, eat the same food they do. I have a sense of humor. I'm very clear about what I believe in. Now they have a reason to say Julie might be the candidate that we want to put on that assignment or that we want to promote. But you have to know the rules inside of an organization. And if you don't, you miss the opportunity to grow or be given opportunities to accelerate. The fourth one is to embrace feedback as a gift. I promise you, I have good intentions for everything that I do. But people can perceive my actions different than my intention. And you need to be open and with a full heart and a good ear to hear what people are trying to tell you. So my friend that said, are you going out looking like that? She's trying to tell me, you intended to look one way, but the perception is you looking like somebody else. And so be open to feedback. Actually, I'd encourage you to seek it out. It's a harder thing because some people don't have the communication skills to deliver you that tough feedback. So you have to swallow hard. You're like, I think they mean well, but boy, she cutting me left and right? But know who you're talking to and know that they're trying to offer you a gift. And I promise you, we didn't always get what we wanted at Christmas time. But it had your name on it, and you warmed up to that idea because when you realized that's all you had, you're like, this not bad after all, right? Because it's yours and you didn't have to share it with your sister, or at least that was my case. I hated Santa's Jennifer and Julie gift. Who gets a bike with her sister, right? But there was gratitude that I had a bike after my sister lets me ride, right? But you have to realize that there are gifts in life, and you have to be open to receive them. The last acceleration tip is master the art of communication. My mom, if you guys remember, so at Walgreens, that was the store in Eckerd Drugs before they were purchased, used to have these workbooks. And so my mom was all about excellence. And my mom says, if they can't read your handwriting, then it doesn't matter what you wrote, right? So she used to make us practice our handwriting. I mean, we went through books of it. And people will even say to my sister and myself, man, you have great handwriting. I said, thank my mama. And so I was like, that probably was a telltale sign I wasn't going to be a doctor because you can't read nothing a doctor writes, right? So I would have been the doctor that you could read the whole prescription as a patient. But you have to be very clear with your communications. Maybe you need to sign up with Toastmasters. You should take the opportunity to have as many rehearsals as you can. I actually ran track in high school, but I was also a state orator. And I had an oration, and there was money on the line. And my mom was like, you going to go to the state track meet versus practice? Remember, we have to have private victories before the public one. I felt very confident that I could do both. My mother said not so. So I did not go to the state track meet in Florida in the 330 hurdles. I practiced my speech. So now I had greater incentive because if I'm not going to run track, I better win because I'm losing already on one thing that I wanted to go. And my mother said I would not practice the way I was supposed to. But I then became a more effective communicator because I spent a lot of hours, for the young people, you all won't remember the tape recorder, but play and record with the red button. That was my friend. And she would tell you all kinds of things. So we don't have all the technology, but that was the way. You said your speech in the mirror, and then you push play and record, and you could hear yourself. And then every now and again, your family would come over, and they would actually give you the dry run. All right, baby, say your Easter speech, right? So I had to say my oration so that way, before you show up on stage, I wouldn't be afraid of seeing faces and people that have nonverbals that just like they got their arms folded. That's all right. I had an uncle that you couldn't tell if he was asleep or awake, right? So I'm just going to call you Uncle Fred, right? But I think if you can take these acceleration tips, it really will make a difference. I then thought I'd share 2 more pieces with you before I close, and then we can take questions. This would be lessons learned. You have to be willing to attempt, to adapt, and to overcome. Many of us miss life's opportunities and live short of our purpose because we're not willing to attempt something we have never tried before. We all had a first time for something. They didn't give you a roadmap when you had your child in the hospital. They didn't tell you how you would be a great parent. You know, I make apologies to my daughter constantly. I'm like, you're the first child. We just trying to figure it right for your brothers. You just got in the lineup. I'm doing the best I can, but I didn't know that, baby. But you just charged it to mama's heart because she surely didn't know any better. But you have to make sure that you're true to you. I believe my greatest hurdle was the fear of being great. So I didn't worry about the competition. It was about me. Can I really do that? When I was asked to become a C-suite chief marketing officer, I didn't have any girlfriends that had been in the C-suite, so what am I going to do in this job that I know nothing about? But don't let your fear hold you back, because David wrote, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of a sound mind. So make sure if you study the word will come back strong and stand up in you, so that when you find yourself in a weak place, the word will make you strong. Now, one of my personal pet peeves with my kids and then people on my team, I say failure is one thing, but excuses are something totally different. Failure tells me that you attempted to do something, but you didn't reach the goal. There were a lot of people attempting to make the stand in the Olympics, but they failed in their quest. There were a lot of people finishing 4th, just right outside of winning a medal. But most people have excuses. Why I didn't get it done, back to the dog ate my lunch, and he didn't give me the opportunity. It's not taking accountability. Failure said, I stood up in it, I did my best, I put my best foot forward. But as a great leader, you have to be willing to at least take the attempt, take accountability, take the failure, take the lessons learned, but please don't use the excuses, because everybody has one. Something's going on in every one of our lives at this very moment in time that could have caused you not to be here tonight. But you didn't use that as that's the excuse of why I won't be here, to hear what God might actually have to say. But I think one of the most important one on this page is your mind is the control tower. Now, Paul actually spends quite a bit of time in Romans and in Hebrews talking about your mind. He talks about having a renewed mind. As a man thinketh, so is he. The image on the right side of this is actually an affirmation that my children say every morning. So they say a prayer and they say 2 affirmations. I believe you speak things into your life. And so you have to be your best cheerleader. So my daughter goes off to college. She's been saying an affirmation since she could talk. And this is one of them. And it actually starts with knowing that the seed of a thing starts in your mind. So who you become started with a seed. And big trees all started from a seed. What are you affirming in your life? Do you speak anything in your life every day? If you keep saying it's going to be a bad day, it's funny how it's a bad day, right? But I go into boardrooms and I know we're going to have a good board meeting, even if I know it's going to be a tough one. I'm coming out victorious because I have a mindset that says no matter how tough the questions are, it's still going to be good. Sometimes I'm getting them right and sometimes I didn't get them right. But that doesn't change the outcome. My whole weather map isn't determined by other people. I can have a good day with the weather woman or the weatherman here being able to say it's sunshiny. I don't have clouds because I'm not letting you bring your cloud to my house, right? Don't let other people bring you their problems and cloud up your purpose, because people will do it. And they don't mean harm, but they definitely don't mean good. Right? I would strongly encourage you to look at purpose and look at affirming who you are. So I'll close with some strategies. And I firmly believe that you have to put forth your best foot at all times. I would say that no matter which leader, we were fortunate when I was young to have one of the best pastors at our church in Florida, Reverend W.C. Ecker. And wherever Reverend Ecker went, it didn't matter if we were going to a small church, and we used to call those storefront churches where there might have only been about 20 people in the congregation. He preached to those 20 people the same way that he would at the Baptist convention with thousands of people. Make sure you don't shortchange, because it's not about the numbers. Sometimes it may just be one person that God sent you somewhere to speak to, and you will bless them, and you have no idea what blessing they will then be to the kingdom. But you have to put your best forward. And I think if anybody's seen and read or even heard Bishop Jake's story, Bishop Jakes will talk about his story and what his opportunities and what were some of the things that caused him to move to the next level. But it was because he was preaching like he preached when he was young, as well as now when he's at the Potter's house. You should give your best at all time, because isn't God deserving of your best every day? Third, I've said it multiple times, practice, prepare, and you should pray. Before you enter anything, you should ask God's direction so that you make sure that you know what lane you're supposed to be riding or driving in. The third one is knowing what lap you're on. In that opening video, Jimmy and Dale knew we were in the final lap, and they knew we were on the third turn. I don't know if there are runners in the house, so I don't run marathons, but I run half marathons, and I try to get my family to run 5K. You need to know how much further you have in a race, because I don't run a half marathon the same way I run a 5K. Those are many different miles, and you have to manage your energy, but you have to know when you're getting close to home. And many of us don't actually know what lap we're on. The other piece is have your personal pit crew. Everybody needs somebody. Do you know who's your CFO or your brand? Who's actually helping you manage your money? Somebody needs to help you manage your money if you don't have a money manager. If you don't have a PR agent, who's speaking on your brand's behalf? How do you make sure that your brand is going before people? Melissa was a part of my PR agency. I would not have known you, but Melissa knew me. And somewhere about my brand, she decided to share that with Bishop Millett. Make sure you know what your word is. My grandmother used to say what you mean and mean what you say. And so a good leader, a champion leader, is always honored and bonded to their word. Because if I can't believe what you say, I don't know what else I can believe in. And that's an important piece. One of the final quotes that I leave you with is from Francis Bacon. And it's one of my favorites. I've used it in a couple of different places. But Francis said, everyone has a desire to win, but only champions have the desire to prepare. It's not what we eat, but what we digest that makes us strong. It's not what we gain, but what we save that's going to make us rich. It's not what we read, but what we remember that makes us learned. And it's not what we profess, but what we practice that gives us integrity. So Jimmy is a 6-time NASCAR champion. That's what Victory Lane looks like. You should do a vision board if you don't have one, because you need to know what victory looks like in your life for your brand. And my children, they don't know I'm using them in marketing examples all the time, but they have vision boards. But we didn't call them that. We just cut out some magazines and some pictures, and we put them on a blackboard. But what we were able to affirm is all three are gifted, and they're different. And we are able to appreciate everybody's gifts and their differences, because we know we were all fearfully and wonderfully made. So I encourage you to take the lead. The time is now. Each of you are leaders in your own right, but the choice is totally yours. It has been my honor and my privilege. God bless.
What we'll do, Julie, is let you stand with me for any Q&A. Okay.
That's fine. That's fine.
Let's give Julie a great big hand again. Hey, Josh. We have a microphone that's standing set right here in the center, and anyone that we want to leave some time for Q&A for Sister Julie. So any questions that you might have, we ask you collectively to just make your way to the center. brand.
Right. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Don't put it right.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so the first question is usually the one that's the hardest because nobody wants to be first. But I flew all the way from Cincinnati here for somebody, so don't miss your opportunity to ask your question. That's what courage looks like, is going to that mic to ask your question. I'm good, but I wasn't that good that I answered everybody's question. So what's on your heart? What didn't come through clear? Remember what I told my son, know why you came. So why did you come, and what is it that I didn't share that might help you understand your brand and take your homework assignment and really move to the next level this weekend? You're going to have to sit in the front of the room, because if you're going to be a brave soldier and you coming all the way to the front, thank you.
I was hiding over here too. I had a question for you.
Oh, good.
I heard you when you first opened up, you talked about your education. I
Yes.
just wanted to know, I heard you started in chemistry, but then you went to your master's. What did you learn, and how important do you think education is?
Oh, education is critical. It's the foundation to everything that I do, because it's the one thing that you can't take from me. Now, I was pre-med, so I actually was, I believe in getting all that I can for the money my mom and dad had to pay. So I was a chemistry and psychology major, African American studies, math, and religion minor. Everything I took counted. It was how I saw it. If we pay for it, we should get something from it. But it's about applying what you learn. So I'm actually not the typical marketer. I approach many things from a chemical mindset. I see things and how things connect, so I'm probably a better strategist than many, because if anybody took organic chemistry, you know the pain and suffering that goes in with chemistry. You have to know how things come together and what will actually not work together, and I take those same ideas and apply them to business. And in life, you have to know how to make application of what you've learned. And life will also be a good teacher. You don't have to sit in the classroom per se, but the classroom of life will actually illuminate some things for you. But you have to be ready and open to seeing what's available. So at all times, I actually 2 years ago went back to Harvard, because we didn't have devices when I was going to business school. So I needed the next employer to know that I'm qualified and capable of social media and all things that were new, because that was not a class that I took, and I figured who better than Harvard to be able to qualify and clarify that I'm certified for what I do. So at all times, be a student, because somebody and something can always teach you to take you to the next level. Yes, Brian.
Yes. Normally, to get to where you are, or a person of your stature, it takes countless hours and almost always lots of work.
Yes.
Was it your goal to, get to the point to where you could accomplish more with less effort? And are you able to accomplish that, or is it always, just a strong work ethic and
Yes. I think it just
morning
changes.
to faint?
Yeah, it probably changes forms, meaning we also have 24 hours, and I personally have sort of 30-day objectives. So some people do 100-day plans. I actually do 30-day plans. And my kids do 7-day plans, because my point is you're not sitting in my house all week on Christmas break, summer break, spring break, doing nothing. There's something that somebody should be doing. And so somebody that's working for me used to say, it's hard being your child. I was like, yeah, so take that as a blessing that you're not my child, right? But they actually have to understand time. And so for me, I did put in a lot of time. I still put in a lot of time. It's just how I change where I use my time. I'm very big about making sure that if I hire the right people, I empower them to go and do their work. And I will usually start my orientation with a new team all about playing your position. I usually use basketball in that particular analogy. But the point is, I'm the coach. My playing days are over. I've already dribbled the ball, shot the ball. My job is to stand on the sideline. The day I cross over and start dribbling, we're in trouble, right? I don't need to be the one that the board member sees. I've already been seen. I've already had that. But you have to know what season of life you're in. And so my time is different. I worked really hard when I was on the playing field. Now I spend different time because now I'm asked and I have the opportunity to serve on different boards. I'm able to have a different impact. So it's probably still a lot of hours, and I don't sleep a lot of hours. So anybody that loves a lot of sleep, leadership will probably have a conflict for you. I figured I'll get some rest when I've turned the last page. I always told my husband, make sure the casket is real soft because it's my last sleeping pillow. I want to sleep well. Don't shortchange nothing on the sleeping plan, right? But at the end of the day, I probably get about 5 hours of sleep. But it's based upon purpose. It's about what it is that I want to get done. But I think I work as hard as I did then. I'm just in a coaching working hard versus a player working hard. Does that make sense? Thank you, Brian. Yes.
Yes. Just got promoted to vice president of the company that I work at.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Yes.
it. Appreciate it. So my question is, how do you determine with people that are on your team whether this is someone you need to remove from your team, or is this someone you need to mentor and groom to be that person that's on you? That person may have that potential, but they need some grooming.
That's exactly right. Well, that's an important one to understand who's on your team. Many of us are not in the same position that Jesus was in where he could pick his team, right? But I even find it interesting that Jesus could pick a team, and he picked a motley crew, right? But sometimes you inherit some stuff, right? And at the end of the day, it is through prayer, because you need discernment to be able to understand and see what doesn't always show up on paper. Because as you would know, many times in the reviews that people have done, you will actually have somebody else's commentary that might actually be the negative commentary that doesn't give that person the opportunity. So you need to make sure that you're looking at the story with fresh eyes, being mindful that there is a record, but I would hope no one would hold the old Julie against the new Julie, right? And so I think if you do that and operate with wisdom, but also with discernment, God will reveal clearly and confirm who needs to go to the left and who needs to go to the right. Remember, he said, I'll do the separating. So that's actually not your job. If you just leave it before him, he'll help you see it so clear as to who needs to stay with the team to move forward and who maybe needs to be assigned to a different opportunity or out of the company. Sometimes it's just not a good fit. All right? Hi.
I have two questions.
Yes.
The first one is, how do you leverage your time? And the second one is, what does your personal development routine look like?
Okay, so how do I leverage my time? It varies from month to month. Literally, it does. I try to make sure that I spend time with me. That's something I did not do, but I can't give all of me to all of the people that I give to if I don't spend time with me. So there is a devotion time to make sure I'm listening, because sometimes we forget to listen. We're doing the talking, so I'm trying to make sure I can hear what he's telling me to do. But then I need to understand if this is a part of the season where I need to spend more time with my children, if I need to spend, they know marketing is usually right at the end of summer and the beginning of fall. It's a critical time for marketing planning. So mommy won't be as visible to them, but they know that that's that season. So what I try to do is make sure that we live by a calendar. It's on the wall in the kitchen. Every month is laid out. We know that if you want mommy to be the homework parent, you need to do your homework before you bring me your issue saying it's due tomorrow, right? So we're very planful and methodical about where our time is allocated. But it's the thing I forgot to do along the way was take time for me, because I was always giving to someone else and then I'm feeling drained. But I've learned that if I can keep my tank full, I can give to a lot more. But I also have learned I don't have to do all the work. If you have the right people on the team, they will actually do the work with you, and sometimes they'll do the work for you, and you will be surprised. They will probably do it better than you. But that would be my sort of breakout, but I don't have a regiment that I get up in the morning at 5:30 and I exercise. I'm purpose-driven. If I'm running a half marathon, I run a lot of miles. When I'm not running a half marathon, this chick is not running, right? So it is not in my spirit to do that many miles. I'm doing it because I'm trying to run this race to raise money or whatever my purpose was. Second question?
Personal development routine, what does it look like?
So personal development, I actually try to make sure that I look at my brand every year. So remember I told you that I do a marketing plan with my husband. So what are the things that I know I don't do well? And then where do I need to make sure that I close those gaps? So when I decided to go back to Harvard, I'm not the girl on social. I hire people on my team. I have great agencies. I would rather talk to you one-to-one than to tell everybody on Facebook where my children and I were last night. And so I, though, had to make sure that I closed that gap so that no one else, if they were looking for me on social, could say I'm not qualified to be a chief marketing officer. So I decided I'd do it a different way versus go find a whole bunch of people and say, would you like me? Okay, that's not it. But I also make sure that I look back I have a book. I actually had 33 people that I sent a letter to ask them what they saw in me and what they believe my story would be. So I always go back to see what somebody saw and figure out, am I living all the way or below, and what do I need to now do? So case in point, I'm now working on my executive coaching certification within a National Coaching Federation. It's because I just believe that if I want to be a great leader, I need to be a great coach. I probably won't be an executive coach in life, but I believe it'll be good to do. I also am working on becoming a 7 Habits Stephen Covey trainer. Now, that has nothing to do with being a chief marketing officer, but I believe it's going to make the brand Julie a better brand if I know how to be an effective leader and live the principles versus just reading the book. So it varies from stages and seasons, but when you know where you are and you keep looking at the road sign that says you're running behind, you need to pick up your pace, then I know I need to move a little bit faster. Does that get there? Good. Thank you for the question.
First and foremost, I just want to say I enjoyed you so thoroughly.
Thank you, Angela.
You have just poured into us, and we just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
The next thing I want to say is I am a NASCAR fan. I would not have the job that I have right now if it wasn't for NASCAR, because I work for Edelbrock, who is very into NASCAR. I wanted to ask you, we've talked about so much about purpose-driven and how we've developed our time and what our personal development is. How important do you think that having a downtime during the year or a vacation to where, especially since we're so many things to so many people, how that downtime really helps us refresh ourselves and become even more effective in what we're doing?
So your answer is already inside of you, because it is the truth. That was probably one of the things I didn't take time and I didn't have the insight, was to take time for me. I was racking up the vacation days. They don't give you credit for storing up vacation. In many companies, you lose them at the end of the year. Yes. And so that doesn't help you. I'll use a sports analogy. If you think about basketball, even Michael Jordan was one of my favorite players. Michael did not play 40 minutes every game. Everybody takes a timeout. So in life, you need to call timeouts, whether it's a 30-second timeout or a full timeout. So you do need to go and get refreshed. So actually, at the beginning of the year, I turned 50, so I decided that maybe I'm not listening as clearly as what the Lord wants for the next 50. So I went to India on a mission trip. There's nothing like going somewhere where you know no one and you don't know what they're saying. To hear God real clear, all your senses are open when you're like, what are these people saying, right? Yibbity, yibbity, yibbity. You're like, what did they just say about the black girl from the United States, right? And so you have to really take time for you. But the vacation days, they're going to bank them to the company, but they want a whole refreshed you. And I think until you take your timeouts, you don't play your best game for the full game without doing that. But I didn't do it in the beginning, but I'm a strong supporter of vacations. By yourself, not always with your husband and your children either, on your own.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, we have one more question over here.
How you doing?
Chad, my buddy.
Yeah, how you doing? I just graduated school, college from UNC Charlotte.
Congratulations.
And, thank you. So I'm right here in the moment where I'm trying to start my career and build my network. And so I'm having like an issue of like building relationships past the initial stage. So I meet somebody, change information, but trying to build a relationship after that point. I was wondering if you had any tips on doing that.
Sure. So I'm not a proponent of passing business cards. If you give me a card and we have no relationship, I actually couldn't tell you where your business card is. Remember, it's about a relationship. So I believe that when you're talking to someone, leave them with some handprint of Chad on them. Find out what I'm interested in, And then many times people already know many things that you can share with them. One of my bosses, the one I've worked for 3 times, I can't outread him, but he sure does love my effort, right? So if you know I love NASCAR, you might want to tell me something about NASCAR and tell me that it applied to something else. But that means we went deeper into it, and it wasn't just, here's my card, give me your card. So when you're talking to people, how am I going to remember you? When I talked to you in the very beginning, I gave you some visuals. I said, are you sitting on the right? Are you sitting on the left? Already, I may not remember everybody else that's here, but I was already thinking about you, right? So when I met Rebecca at her table, we talked about something that would now leave a different imprint. My daughter and son and I went to a concert last night, and I said, well, all these people are going to be in line meeting the artist. And I said, but how is he going to remember you out of all the people on the tour? What are you going to say that's going to be so different and unique? In networking, don't just get a bunch of people on LinkedIn. I only have people on LinkedIn that if I call you, you respond in 72 hours or less. I don't need friends. I mean, I'm past those days, right? I'm now in a relationship. If you call me, I'm here for you. But you need to make sure that people know what you want, and then you need to know what they might be in need of. It'll change what networking has been versus business card exchanges at the end of the day. All right? Good.
I wanted to ask a question slightly different. You know, with my profession, I believe it's very important that pastors who have such great platforms of influence begin to reassess how we have church.
That's right.
And how we address and respond to the needs of our congregation. And it's a leap of faith to move beyond just having conversations that are just relative to your life and Jesus, and begin to move more into how do we begin to work together to have a greater impact in our community and, even in our nation as a whole. So I see the need as a pastor to do things like we're doing tonight and to call this assembly. From your position and your profession, how important is it that you think pastors begin to do the kind of things that we're doing, and what do you feel the church's role can be in that?
Sure. I actually think it's central to any community or to any organization. The church, doesn't matter which religion, is core to the fabric of the United States. On our money, we say, in God we trust. Now, everybody may not remember all the founding fathers and the history lessons, but the church is a cornerstone to this country. And so when you think about where people go, whether it's on Saturdays, Fridays, or even on Sundays, they're worshiping and gathering together. You do what many marketers would love to do, is get people to cross the threshold and come into my store or into wherever. You get people to come across the threshold into this house. You then have a captive audience that I wouldn't always get as a marketer. And so I think it's important that if you're going to minister to the heart and to the head and ultimately to the soul of a man, because that's the deep part, that's the root part that most of us don't get to do Monday through Friday at work, you can actually have a greater impact. And together as partners, you can take the same people in the church, and they're going to be working in my company, and together we're going to build our community. Because guess what? My revenue is going to be generated by your worshipers and church members, but together we have to see that we're in this with each other and not against each other, and it's not your thing as the pastor, my thing as the executive. So it's but many things in life we've always been taught is an or. Either you do this or you do that. But here, I believe your answer is combined with an and. Together, we'll do more than we would do by ourselves. Okay? Yeah.
Hello. My name is Tasha, and I had a question because you said you I guess you were trying to pursue medicine originally.
Yes.
I'm actually a BSN,
Okay.
but I am now pursuing my MBA.
Good.
And so at Syracuse. So at this point, one of the reasons I chose to go that way is because you said something about strategy. And so what I've been God has been downloading to me is strategic movements in which we need to be able to see things. And so what I'm learning is adding an MBA not only to my nursing, but also to, as I am a minister, is to understand the strategic movements that are happening in our world today. And so as an MBA and going into what I'm getting now, one of the things I'm looking at is transitioning, like from the healthcare field into the MBA. Is there any type of, I guess it's a guidance you can give on how to make that move?
So let's stick with your statement about strategy. And my word is intentional. I think things in life are interconnected more than we ever give it credit for. And you have to think about how can you apply what you already know in nursing, what you then will learn in academia and an MBA toward where you're going. So I don't know if there are road signs here. In Florida, on the Florida Turnpike, there used to be signs and it was like telling a story. But you have to watch the signs to understand the story. So you need to actually have road signs. And that's why I believe the vision board is so important. Lay it out and say, if I receive this insight or whatever learning I may have through my MBA, how does it connect to what I know in medicine? And where am I going? The key point is any road can get you there, right? But you need to be very clear about where you're trying to go and what aspect of your education and your experience is actually going to enable you to go to the next level. But it's really a little bit more about your personal strategy and then how to apply the skills and the knowledge that you're now obtaining. So congratulations on seeing the vision that it's greater than just the little thing, because your gifts are multidimensional. And many times we settle for I'm one thing, but God created us multifaceted, and you seem to have many gifts operating at the same time. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Let's give Julie a hand. Oh, okay. Come on, while you're coming. You're coming. Okay. You're going to go bam, bam, double barrel. Okay.
Yes.
She's going to do this like in 90 seconds.
All right.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Lucretia.
Nice to meet you, Lucretia.
I know you said when you're branding, you have to start branding with yourself first. When I have the thing that's personal to me, but I'm ready to share it with other people in the business aspect, how do you find people who are already in it that you can trust with it, that idea?
Yeah, so that's a harder one. So I firmly believe that everybody can't take your story at the beginning. So I'll use mothering. Anybody that remembers the first trimester, you didn't tell everybody that you were pregnant in the first trimester. So everybody shouldn't know what you're about to birth out, because they're not going to help you through those times. That's a very important time of being able to nurture and grow it. So back to that pit crew, you need to make sure that you know who's on the team, who do you value, who already has experience, and who operates in wisdom, because they're the ones that's going to provide you sound counsel. And you don't need a lot of them. So you say, I need more of a strategic person. I need a creative person. I need someone who's always asking the what if question. Whatever it is that you're building, make sure you surround yourselves with, say, those 3 to 5 people that can ask the right question and help deposit the right thing, so that in your second trimester, you're going to be beautiful, and they're going to say you're glowing, Lucretia, and they'll be ready for your birth and your baby. All right? Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Final question over here.
I was just wondering, what are your views on investing in your business? And really not just your business, but in life in general. There's a lot of opportunities out there, but every opportunity may not be, the best opportunity. Sometimes putting yourself out there, could either excel your brand and or, ruin your brand. So how do you determine when do you invest, when do you not invest, and how much, do you really put forth into your business when you're trying to grow it?
Exactly. So I don't know if any of you guys are fans of Shark Tank. No matter when you watch Shark Tank, the sharks want to know how much money have you put in your own business before they get ready to buy, right? So if you don't believe in you, the sharks are like, why am I going to give you my money? Because I'm believing that I'm enabling you to go to the next level. So what I'd want to know is, how are you investing behind your idea? Tyler Perry really was going broke, all in. Are you all in? I mean, if you sleeping in your car, you believing in Medea, right? Long before Medea is something that everybody is watching and seeing. So what is your Medea? What is your dream? And do you believe 100% in it? If you do, I say jump in the deep end. If you don't know how to swim, don't jump in the deep end. You need to go take a class first, right? But when you know how to swim, jump in. I always say leave everything on the field. If you come back and tell me you have something in reserve, you did not play the game as well as you could have. So go and play 100%, and I promise you God will add the increase. He just asked for the little boy's lunch. He ain't asked for the whole thing, right? He says, I'll do the multiplying. You do your part, and he'll do the multiplying, but don't serve him short, because if you don't do your part, you didn't give him anything to work with. All right?
Wow, let's... One more time, give it up for the Playbook champion tonight. Beck's Graphics had a drawing for a jump drive, and the winner was Miss Tracy McCauley. Okay, Miss Tracy. And while you're coming, because she's a winner, if she's a business owner, she gets 30 seconds to tell us about her business and what she does.
Thank you. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Tracy McCauley, and I am the owner of Creative Touch Salon in Sanford. And I am a stylist. I have been for 20 years. I just opened up a new business in Sanford in April. I was doing hair in Wake County. So if you're looking for a new stylist or just someone just to give you a new touch, come and see me.
Congratulations.
Marketing A+.
Just a couple of housekeeping items, brothers and sisters. Your badges that you have tonight, you need to bring those badges back with you in the morning. Can we trust you to watch over them overnight? Amen. Okay, very good. Bring them back.
Accountability.
Yeah, and it makes for easier check-in tomorrow. The doors open in the morning at 8:30. Our first session begins sharply at 9 o'clock. There are product tables in the lobby that you can avail yourself of. Tomorrow we get really deeper into the nuts and bolts of what God really has for us. Again, Sister Washington has done a phenomenal job for us tonight, and we certainly appreciate. And she spends so much time in corporate. I hope it's very refreshing to her to be in a faith environment, and I hope and pray that these kind of environments you'll be open to coming, because we really need to hear your voice. Amen. And we need your gift in the church too. So thank you so very much. With that said, thank you so much for tonight. Can we all stand? All right, we all stand. We do want to say we're grateful for another one of our champion presenters that is here tonight. Apostle Brian Phillips is here. He's going to be one of our presenters on tomorrow. The other two presenters will be in the morning, and of course I'll be presenting in the morning as well. And you got a treat tonight, and if you ain't heard the folk who coming tomorrow, you really in for even greater treat. Okay, so take a moment to greet 2 or 3 people, tell them thank you for coming, and encourage them to take the lead wherever your area of expertise lies. Okay, the product table is in the lobby.